Well, welcome to the McCune Collection today. We are so lucky in Vallejo to have this rare book collection, to have Henry Beecher, who helped us out in a pinch when we were looking for a venue. We're very, very grateful to him. And just to mention, the McCune Room relies on donations. There is a donation box in the back if you're so inclined. It's just a beautiful, beautiful room, and then there are artifacts, from literature and, civilization in general that are just amazing. If you take a few minutes to look, we'll have a 5-minute break or so in between the reading and our Q&A conversation. I'm Kathleen Herman, co-poet laureate of Vallejo, along with Jacqueline Yvonne. And you'll hear from us both today. We are so delighted to bring Juanita Martin and Audrey T. Williams to the McCune Room today to read their original poetry to you, which, I've heard them both, and they're very compelling voices. And I always enjoy the contrast between poets and their messages and their styles and their word choices. It's like hearing two completely different songs, both of which touch you and move you. So just a few announcements. There are flyers on the back table about events in Vallejo. I think most of you here know about our Tea House Poetry on the second Sunday of each month from 2 to 4 at Integrity Space up on 717 Marin Street, kind of almost across the street from the Naval Museum. And tomorrow, Jacqueline and I will both be featured readers on Mare Island at the Art Studios. Mare Island Art Studios on Pintado Street. There's an ekphrastic event there called Art of Community. It's an annual August exhibit. And the exhibit, I was talking about poets being varied. The art exhibit is varied. Everything from hard sculpture to soft sculpture to watercolors to acrylic painting, and so many different subjects and topics. Art of Community. So that's tomorrow from 2 to 4. There will be an ekphrastic reading, and Jacqueline and I will kick it off with a few poems that we have written about the art, and then other poets will join us. Let me see the other flyer you'll find back there. It's a lavender flyer. Jacqueline and I are accepting poems right now up through August 30th for a Bay Area anthology called A New Season, A World in Flux. So it's the idea of most of us really feeling, as Carole King says, the earth move under my feet. Things are feeling different. So whatever that means to you, political poems are accepted, but your poem doesn't have to be political. It can be about ways that you are functioning in these times and celebrating joy and pain and the mixed bag that is life. So there's a link that you submit your poems through. So all that information is on the lavender flyer. So that being said, we will move on to our first reader, Juanita J. Martin. She was the inaugural Poet Laureate in Fairfield back in 2012. Juanita, is that when you began? 2012, does that sound right?
No, 2010 actually.
2010. And so she kicked off the Poet Laureate program, which is still going strong today. Suzanne Bruce, Poet Laureate Emerita, is also with us. And a lot of you know about her ekphrastic events at the FSVAA, Fairfield Solano Visual Arts Association. They're almost monthly or every 6 weeks or so. So you can talk to her if you're interested in that. Back to Juanita. She's the author of The Lighthouse, Beckons, and Quiet Intensity. poetry books. She has poems in magazines such as Rattlesnake Review, Soma Literary Review, and Blue Color Review. She writes flash fiction, nonfiction articles, essays, and book reviews. She has awards, including a California Senior Poet Laureate Finalist Award in 2012, and a California Senior Poet Laureate Honor Scroll Award in 2011. So she's been a California Writers Club member in Redwood. That's Marin, isn't it? The Redwood?
Redwood's Sonoma County.
Oh, it's okay, Sonoma County, Napa Valley, and Mount Diablo. While at Napa Valley Writers, she introduced poetry book reviews in the newsletter, and she was managing editor of the Napa Valley Writers Third Harvest 2021 anthology, which that is where I met Juanita, because she edited my poems that went into that anthology. And I had never, it was my first year belonging to Napa Valley Writers, and I had never been published in one of their anthologies. I was just getting to know everybody, and she was wonderful to work with. She published her first memoir and flash fiction story in that same anthology. She attended the Napa Valley Writers Conference in 2021, studying poetry under author and teacher Gillian Conley. In 2023, she received an honorable mention in the Benicia Love Poetry Contest for the Love Haiku poem. And if I can share that story, because I remember so vividly that afterwards, either I was with you on Zoom or maybe we talked privately, I can't quite remember, but you had a lot going on the particular day of the awards, and you emailed Mary Susan Gast, who was involved with the award ceremony, don't think I can make it, the Zoom meeting. And Mary Susan emailed back, Juanita, if there's any way you can be there, be there. Still, you weren't expecting the award, but there it was, and I remember your haiku as well. She also received a reserve best in the Benicia Herald in 2020, and Juanita J. Martin's work can be found on various sites and at www.jmartinwriter.com. So with that, I would like to warmly welcome Juanita Martin.
Thank you. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Yeah. Oh, you're here too. Okay, so I'm going to read some poems out of the book first, the one that I have, Lighthouse Beckons. And then I'm going to switch to poems that are not in a book right now, but they will be in the Quiet Intensity once it is published, and that's why I'm taking orders for that book. It is not finished yet, but I'm taking orders for that. It's going to be $22, and it is going to be available in the next coming months, and I just need to give you a sheet. You can order it. Is it kind of loud?
No, I was.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, and again, the poems I'm going to be reading first from the book and then from Quiet Intensity. I have copies of poems that are going to be in that book, and they are with me here. First offering is a poem called Retreat. The one thing about this book that I want to mention is that it was partially edited by the former Poet Laureate, he's now gone, Al Young, who also gave me this review on the back of my book. Retreat, and this is what he said about this poem. He likes this poem, and on the back he said that in the Lighthouse Beckons, Juanita Martin, like numberless seekers, keep discovering and rediscovering California's natural and hopefully abiding comforts, finding solace and release as she contemplates love, watches, listens, converses, or interacts with the deathless beauty of clouds, sky, oceans, rivers, forests, wilderness, the sun, and other sources of light, the poet heals herself. Miss Martin's psalm-length meditative poems make it easy for the overly wired to disconnect in order to reconnect like the first time, every time, just as Retreat, her joyful poem of celebration, expresses it. And now I'm going to read that poem. Retreat. An obscure road asked me to travel her again. As I close my eyes to the city, the country's falsetto voice calls me back. The deafening sounds of the daily drone become a windy chorus of the trees. I am like a child that loves to play. I can retrace the reticent feel of nature's breath on my skin as I stray under nonchalant skies like the first time, every time. Within my own backyard lies a serene path of rejuvenation. Suddenly, I am sinking into the velvet grass. Thank you. That's the poem that was referenced by Al Young. Coat hanger tales, mysteries, snippets of the dead and the living remain in a closet. Part of us is attached to the outer garment, the one we wear and the one we disguise. Hangers are exposed to convenient indiscretions, aftermaths of societal rages, humiliation of youthful taunts. Symbols of souls are briefly examined in this symbiotic state. What tales would they tell? Through them, we could unravel our past, solve puzzles of life. Would we dismiss their honesty? Could we shun their infinite wisdom? Do we fear they would put us on display? Perhaps they would reveal too much of our secret self. Destined to be our instruments to place the world upon, hangers exist inside the darkness while we pretend in the light. Thank you. A little different poem. This next one was a third place poem at the Solano County Fair. It's called Never Said Goodbye. And the story of this poem is about my stepmother when she died. Never said goodbye. Calm spring air carried stings of pain as two lives wrestled in peril on separate shores. A glance at a vase, a stir from an empty hallway, brought a poignant sigh from a daughter's lips as she prepared for the news of her mother. Somber clouds hovered like a weight on a daughter's soul. Eyes were heavy, a mind too full. A sense of relief came, doubts lingered as her heart rushed to her mother's bedside. She wished she could have said goodbye. Instead, she swirled in the darkness to a lonely dance without music. She relived untold stories of a broken existence with no peace, no joyful exchange between herself and her mother. She longed for the voice of love never heard, tender kisses never felt. Forgiveness was a bitter pill upon her tongue as she released her mother, the past, into an empty California skyline. The sun ushered in just beyond the hills to warm the coldness above and below. A dew lifted from the trees. Silence fell like a snowflake in the softness of that April day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is a true story. It's called Soul Dance. And I don't mean the soul music either. Soul Dance. Hard times, uncertainties abound as society vies for sustenance. Where do we all fit in? Are we resigned to the privileged versus the poor? A soul in need asks another soul in need, "Can I have some money for food?" A desperate plea led to a sinking heart in the presence of shame. I questioned my feelings, but declined in fear. My vulnerability, his integrity, who will win? Eventually, my soul danced to the other side. He disappeared in the dust of my contemplation. Trying to avoid his soul, I found my own. I think I'm going to read one more out of this, and I'm going to switch over to the papers. This is one of my favorite poems I love to read. It's called "A River Runs Through Me." Walking along the American riverbed, I lick the crisp mountain air. It glides across my tongue like summer raindrops in a forest. My soul tingles as I disappear into the ecstasy of a wet dreamscape. The rushing waves are ephemeral as I bathe my spirit. So effortless, weightless, I move life into life. A cacophony is created by the smashing of blackened rocks that leave an angle-wear pattern. A symphony bounces off the water with the boldness of Bach and Tchaikovsky, the force of Beethoven and Verdi, or the calm of Mozart and Vivaldi. The wind beckons through the trees, softly, gently, like a mysterious hand, directing a path, my heart, as a river runs through me. I'm going on a women's retreat next month, and I wrote this poem about this place the first time I was there. So we're returning back to the same place, and this is my offering for that place. It's called Zephyr Point. And if anybody knows where Zephyr Point is, it is up there in Tahoe. Zephyr Point. Zephyr Point, where the air is thin and cool. On my tongue as an exhaled sigh, dew lands on mountainous terrain, surrounds a zigzag of trees. A sapphire sky lends a special hue to the shimmering lake, a crowning of God's glory. Just beyond Nevada's line, a California sun rises, piercing my cabin, warming frigid skin. The quiet speaks to me as I sit basking, rejoicing on a spiritual journey in the majestic hauntings of nature. The view, too rich for a camera's eye. The vastness imbibes. Like the subtlety of a summer rain, it pours itself into me. Work and death. I heard my bones shiver as the weight of winter fell against my back door. Crumbles of white held, solid as winds gusted, against my neighbor's cough. He cleared the back of his throat to loosen green chunks, rattling through grated lungs. In the background, coffee perked and popped, soothing to the chill, the ache, body noises of two. On a separate journey, each with a brief timeline. My poems tend to be very short, so they go. Yeah, so hang on, listen very carefully, very quietly. I'll do another one that's a little longer. I have a problem with insomnia sometimes, and so sometimes I don't sleep. So I wrote this poem about sleep. Sleep. Sleep sits there waiting to sneak up on me. My body is resistive, allowing only a snippet, a tease of earnest sleep. I toss until my bladder says, "Hello!" and I run for the bathroom. I need solid, uninterrupted sleep, not the shut-eye over lunch, catnap while watching TV, or the power nap between jobs, sex, or during sex, I desire sleep more than a husband. Rituals, pills, warm milk, tea, I've tried all the insanity. I'll do anything for a good night's sleep. Pay a modicum amount for whatever hype they're selling. In my head all day long, life is a grappling hook to my back. Tranquility, calls to me like a meat to a carnivore. Mattress flat and lumpy keeps me awake. Went shopping for a new bed, one that hugged my stiff hips, melted knots with a whisper. Air wrapped my naked thighs, hugged my back with a firm, supple caress. Humming below rested my weary head, sending me drifting down, down into deep sleep with a little seductive play on the side. And with all the technology that we have in the world today, I decided to write about, you guessed it, the extinction of man. The extinction of man. Technologically advanced or technologically replaced by a facsimile of skin, hair, and bone. Who will serve as man's efficient alternative? An android or AI, a robotic entity, all in the name of science or economy? What a scary proposition. This artificial wonder might become someone's boss. Ponder, if you will, mankind's fate. Will he slip into a quiet abyss, be tucked away in solitary repose? Perhaps he'll become a display set, an anthropological find or ancient ruin, a star in his own reality TV show called When Humans Ruled the Earth. What will we tell our children? What will be our answer to, where did all the people go? This was an experience that I had as a teenager, and I turned it into a poem many, many years ago. And of course, I was an old adult by that time. It's called The Art of Drinking. It was about my first experience drinking as a teenager. Art of Drinking. Typical Saturday night at the local watering hole. Lined up, spirits of all kinds, from Johnny Walker Red to White Zinfandel. Bottoms up to this teetotaler who drank much, too fast. Painted the bar top to bottom, sang the blues of the next hangover. A damsel in distress left a trail of colorful spew, begged faceless strangers for a ride, trusting I'd get home in one piece. 3 a.m., I arrived, barely upright, staggering slowly a block from my destination under a sobering auto breeze. True story. True story. True story. It's a wonder. It's a wonder I made it. I was stupid. You asked two complete strangers for a ride home because you're so inebriated you can't walk, you can't get there. So that was it. That was it. One more? Am I out of time?
No.
Okay, all right. Okay.
No.
Okay, this next one is a Solano County Fair third prize ribbon. It was back in 2016. A bittern wades in lonely water. Foggy blanket hovers piney timbers, the brave who cavorted with darkness. A mind judges himself along the water's edge, against dilapidated death, against the briny stench of a berg. A shale-colored moon spotlights a bittern at one end, the lonely end, where the wine of antipathy pours into a tall glass. Ripples of water are soothing. A mind massages the longing, finds solace there, a break in the mundane silence of living. back to my childhood again. This is me at 3 years old, and I wrote this as an adult. It's a wonder I remembered it, but I took some poetic license here too. It's called Enemy. I barely recall. I was about 3, alone with Dad. He's sweating profusely. Out of the blue, his face changes, contorts to a monster-like image. He began yelling, his gun in hand, not sure if it was loaded. Looking to escape, fear gripped like a vice. Heart sank into nothingness. He grabs my tiny arm. I flop hard to the floor. Tears and screams followed, first me, then Mom, as she entered face to face with a single-barrel shotgun. Dad yells, "Get back, get down, the enemy is coming, the enemy is coming." He took a position behind the bed. He was fighting a faceless enemy in his mind. In those days, they called it shell shock. Eyes fixed on him, the closet became a refuge. Our small bedroom became a bunker where our lives were on the line in Dad's private war. Nowadays, suicide is unfortunately very prevalent and very rapid happening. And I wrote this poem about young people committing suicide. And I just found out an older woman killed herself and she left 3 young children. So this poem really touches me in ways you would not imagine. I just can't imagine someone doing that, but she did, and she shot herself. It was horrible. But yeah, committing suicide. Stories of youth unfold, full of promise, full of pain, awaken to animated lines of hate and shame that sit in judgment. Nothing to feel, no one to blame, where laughter is a dream, where hope's an empty space, where no one seems to dwell. Committing suicide when love is not enough, with several plots, twists, and turns. They grow weary, depleted, numb themselves before that great sleep where a rope is the way out. He steps high and lets go. Stories of youth unfold, full of promise, full of pain, awaken to animated lines of hate and shame that sit in judgment with nothing to feel and no one to blame. Thank you. Let's see, I have one more. No, wait, 2 more, excuse me, 2 more. 2 more. This is about the military. It's called Tours. I'm an ex-military person, so I had to write this. Tours. It's my point of view, if you will, and reasoning why they do what they do. Some of them sign up for 3 and 4 tours, and this is what this is called. Signing up for tours is called Tours. Running, not walking to sign their name. Wasn't planned, yet there they were, another tour. The green, the black, colors worn with honor, swarm the perimeter in full survival mode. The green, the black, recruits band, old, some new, armed with a need to serve and a will to fight, as foreign soul breaks beneath them. The green, the black, soldiers salute freedom in dreadful wars with more tragedy. The green, the black, strangers, heroes, bonded, brothers, sisters, forever etched as the red now flows between them. And I think you know what the red is. Yeah. This is a story from my childhood. I had a crazy childhood, yes. And And my father being, having what they call PTSD now, is one of the reasons why he did this. It's called Shotgun Out the Window. And this is a true story. Shotgun out the window. Station wagon came thundering down our winding lane, but the road ran out. A family of 4 inside, traveling on a spring day, took the wrong turn. My eyes raised, mouth gasped, as father pointed a single-barrel shotgun. Then came the warning. He cocked the barrel high, shotgun out the window. Bullets sailed over the car. Shaken voices cried out. 2 families perilous as the wagon spun out of control. Lives were barely spared as the car regained traction, leaving horrified faces and a gunfire's echo. True story.
Wow.
True story.
Let's give Juanita another big round of applause. Her words have really earned both awards and recognitions in literary communities far and wide, and we're really thrilled to have her here. Her books are over there, so please do take a look at them during the break. And our next poet, whose work bridges imagination, ancestry, and activism. She is not only a writer, but a visionary, organizer who brings speculative literature and cultural preservation into dialogue with wellness and resilience. And it is my honor to be able to present her bio to you today. Audrey T. Williams is a poet, a writer, facilitator, and literary arts organizer. She holds a Master of Fine Arts degree. She was named inaugural speculative poet in residence at Beckons 2025. Impressive. And she was the opening and closing ceremonies director for Seattle World Con that took place earlier this year.
That didn't happen, but
Oh, that didn't happen yet? Oh, they canceled it? What?
well, Mom got sick, we had to cancel.
Oh,
Yeah, that didn't happen.
okay,
But thank
okay.
you.
Well, you were invited.
I was
so that's
invited.
And she will also co-chair, and let's hope this is still on
Oh,
track,
this is on
the
track.
World Fantasy Convention 2026 to be held in Oakland.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Audrey is an accomplished speculative literature event organizer and Words for Wellness creativity workshop facilitator. She bridges literature, literary worlds, and imagination activism through the exploration of ancestral archetypes and cultural narrative preservation. She is a founder of ancestralfutures.org. If you want to write it down, ancestralfutures.org. And Audrey's writing has been published in Lightspeed magazine, Space and Time magazine, Conjuring Worlds, and an Afrofuturist textbook. Is that in the works or that's completed?
Oh, that's been out 2
Wonderful.
years.
Oh, wonderful, and more. Williams combines writing craft with wellness to facilitate transformative self-care and radical resilience through poetry. Her current projects include a memoir on multiracial identity, a full-length poetry manuscript, and a speculative flash fiction collective. She is a member of the San Francisco's Writers Grotto, the Black Speculative Arts Movement, the Afro-Surreal Writers Workshop of Oakland, and the Transformative Language Arts Network. I am so impressed with both of our poets, I tell you. And it is my pleasure to introduce Audrey T. Williams. Let's give her a big welcome, right?
Yeah.
So if y'all don't mind, I would like to take a picture of you all first. I've started taking pictures of the audience when I read. I think it just helps me remember. And my mom, I just have to say, I'm so grateful. My mother, Audrey Sr., is here. Yay! So it's a nice family outing for us. And thank you to my partner, Steven. Yay. Okay, 1, 2, 3, cheese. Perfect. Okay, that's out of the way. So I have to say, I don't think I've ever been in a room with so many Poets Laureate, okay? I mean, how many, honestly? So we've got the 2 Vallejo Poets Laureate. We have Fairfield, 2 Fairfield Poets Laureate, that's 4. We have Kathy, that's 5. Am I missing anybody? That's 5 Poets Laureate, and I'm just soaking it in because let it rub off on me. That's all I'm saying. So, I would like to read, first of all, and thank you for my co-reader today, Miss Juanita. I'm so impressed. Al Young was one of my mentors in my MFA program, so I miss him so much. So I completed my MFA at California College of the Arts in San Francisco back in 2018, and what I'd like to start with, I'm a much younger poet, so I've got 6 poems to share today. But I'd like to start with my first ever published poem, which I think I might have written in Al Young's class, maybe. So I back then was taking, well, I still take a lot of poetry and writing workshops, but there was one poet in particular, Bryn Sato, who was a teacher of mine. I don't know if you all are familiar with her, but she was talking to us about how she had been commissioned by, I believe it was the state of Washington. They were undamming a river, and they had commissioned her to write a poem from the river's perspective of what that felt like, to be undammed. And where I grew up in North Carolina, in a very marshy, swampy area. And I thought, oh, like I'm used to things not being undammed. I'm used to swamps that are sort of stagnant and hold. And so I decided to write a poem about from the swamp's perspective. And so I'm gonna read that first. This is called Great Dismal Speaks to a Slave. And I have a little author's note here. Close to where I grew up in North Carolina, a swamp runs along the western side of Highway 17, just north of Elizabeth City, and further north across the Virginia border to the Chesapeake Bay. This swamp is called the Great Dismal. Original size estimates are around 1,400 square miles. The Great Dismal Swamp plays a huge role in the history of American slavery, as escaped slaves such as Nat Turner and Dred Scott sought their personal safety and liberation by hiding and living in swamps for extended periods of time. The style of this poem is in honor of Langston Hughes's lyrical rhyming poetry, and the last line is directly inspired by Hughes's poem, The Negro Speaks of Rivers. So this is Great Dismal Speaks. I'm saturated sponge of land, soaking up all where the waters seep. I'm lazy lift of alligator eyelid, slow to rouse from dark, dank sleep. I'm drawled out groan of lily pad protests as fat bullfrogs slowly leap. I'm squelch of soil under feet that never rush, always creep. I'm overflow of displaced sorrow, death visits often, always on the reap. And I'm stretched wide from Carolina's Cape Fear up north to Virginia's Chesapeake. I'm your first stop, only chance, last resort to escape the master's keep. I've lost count of the bodies I hold, but each one housed a soul grown deep. Thank you. Okay, so the next poems that I published, and most of these are I should say, I'm excited about this. So I have decided to self-publish my first ever poetry chapbook, and this is gonna be out by the end of September. And these are poems that most of them have actually been published, and they start right at the start of COVID, as I was needing to express and figure out how I felt about everything going on. And right around that same time, just to give a little context, this is when I found poetry as a tool for wellness. It's taught down in Palo Alto, the Institute for Poetic Medicine. My mother had, fallen sick, and she had moved in with my husband and I really needed an outlet, and I didn't know that poetry could be so healing. And so I just latched onto this, and I started writing poems from their prompts, and I thought, oh wow. So anyway, I went on to get trained as a facilitator, so now I teach these workshops. If anyone's interested, please come talk to me about it. But so my first chapbook, I've pulled together some already published and some yet unpublished poems, and this chapbook is called Attending Sorrow, Poems and Writing Prompts for Living with Grief. Because I'll just be honest, there were a couple times we thought we had lost Mom, and I felt I was living with anticipatory grief. In some ways still am. And then it occurred to me, grief takes on so many forms. And I felt like every one of us in some way is holding some form of grief. And so I'm hoping that these poems are helpful to people. I think in some ways they're universal. So I'm offering these up with the intention of going from grief to gratitude for finding our way back to wholeness. So this first poem, I don't know if y'all are like me. I was buying everything. I think I had retail therapy that I was trying to do at the start of COVID when we were all so scared and I was stuck in my house and I couldn't go shopping. So anyway, this is called Integrity 2020. And this came out of a writing prompt to write about just something mundane. So I chose to write about tape. Integrity 2020. This morning, I caught the first ray of sun peeping over the neighbor's roof. A swath of orange glow graced the wall next to me as I opened our front door to retrieve another package on the porch. Have you ever wondered whose hands tape up all these cardboard boxes? It seems a tiny detail, tape. But when everything is falling apart, to have just one thing that exists only to hold things together, I could cry with relief, with gratitude. Oh, that everything and everyone was as consistent, as reliable, as willing to help us keep it all together.
Wow.
Yeah, that's where I was. That was summer 2020. Let's see, and then, so I want to read another one, and I warned my mom. She doesn't know, she hasn't heard some of these, but we've made it through, Mama. We've made it through, okay? But some of these things were really rough, okay? So this one's called Grace. And before I read this, I want to thank my Benicia poetry friends who have workshopped and helped me refine and finesse some of these, and they have gone on to be published. So I have Kathy and Ilian and Becky. I want to just thank you because they've been published, and you had some hand in that. This is called Grace. One tradition we still uphold daily when we eat as a family is to bow our heads, fold our hands, and say grace. No matter if it's Thanksgiving dinner or tuna salad sandwiches. My mama refuses to eat tuna salad anymore though. Not that she doesn't like the taste. She taught me how to make it. There was a year in high school when tuna salad in a pita pocket was all I ever wanted to eat. But when Daddy was taking the chemo and radiation, his throat was so sore, it hurt him to swallow. So Mama made his meals softer and softer. Tuna salad, no bread, was the last meal Mama served him at home, the last meal he took without the help of a tube. I would wonder what Mama's last meal will be, but I can't pretend to know, and I don't know that it matters. What I do know is that when her final day comes, I will be proud to have helped preserve her dignity, to serve her needs to the best of my ability, and as always, there will be grace. Thank you. Let's see. I don't want to go in order. I want to go in a This is the order I want to go in. Okay, so one of the things that I really like to do and where I find my poems sometimes come from, I love a double meaning. I love to do wordplay. And so there were times when I found myself, I was like, what am I feeling? And I was like, I'm floundering. I'm like, that's the word. Like, and it drew me back to a memory of my father and I was his fishing buddy. We used to go fishing all the time, and the very fish I ever caught, I was 4 years old, and it was a flounder. We were on a pier, and of course it was his rod. He hooked it, and he was like, oh, here, you have a fish, and he helped me reel it in, but the story in the family was that, oh, Audrey Jr. caught a flounder. So anyway, this came out of that. This is called Flounder. I'm the pier, reaching out over the ocean, pointing toward another shore. I'm the planks, holding the footfalls of the masses, warping with weather and wind. I'm the space between the planks, educating young ones, showing them how to walk without stumbling. I'm the parent, teaching my child to fish, leaning over the edge. I'm the child, reeling in the fish my father hooked, knowing I've only inherited this. I'm the fish, flapping desperately, fighting for my life. Thank you. And then, let's see. What's the other one? Okay, I have two more, if I have time, that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah, I just have two more. Okay, so this was, I also do a lot of nature-based, like land honoring type work. And this one was like thinking about the elements and trees. And I was drawn back to a time, my husband and I, we'd gone to see the sequoias. And somehow I just made this connection with the trees. I'd never seen any living thing so huge. And it reminded me of, I think it's Toni Morrison. There's a poem about those who have fallen. And it made me think about big trees falling, and it made me think about my father, because he was such a big personality and such a pillar in our community. So this is called Sequoia for Daddy. To compare you to a tree, you would say I'm putting too much on it. But I can only say you were to me a sequoia. It does not feel like exaggeration. Some long-lived beings meet slow ends, drought, disease, the long game of illness inflicted. But you were gone in a lightning strike, bark split clean, heartwood exposed to sudden sky, without warning, mourning. The loss of you, how do I continue? Slowly, I become an alchemist of the mundane, try to find meaning in things that do not change. Study the way morning light still finds the dining table where you stirred your coffee, clockwise, always clockwise, 3 times before the first sip. Like a vaccine that carries the cure born of the disease, I turn my grief into a shield, take lessons from this too swift sorrow. Like how love doesn't end with breath, how roots run deeper than what can be seen, how even in death, fallen giants continue. They nourish the forest for generations. I inoculate myself with this knowledge, that sudden loss teaches us how to hold things gently, like the preciousness of slow mornings, or that this grief is deep love, with no warm hug on the receiving end anymore, with nowhere left to land, except into the world as protection, as wisdom, as fierce tenderness that helps me weather the coming storms. And I think that's it. I got one more. Last one. So this, I wrote this for the world, for all the grief and sorrow and everything that everybody's carrying. So I'll end with this one. This is called Under the Gravity of Earthen Blankets. It takes the weight of the world for full potential to burst forth. We are not passive, not citrus succumbing to the squeeze, not plump garlic cloves nor olives under the press. We are active, as pine cones that must be set alight to release seeds that grow into forests, as chrysalis that must break to make butterfly wings strong enough to fly, as roses that must defy the bud with the collective effort of all our delicate petals. These moments lead to emergence. These moments are required for full bloom. The tighter surroundings close in, the faster raw essence transforms into multifaceted strength and beauty. We are all carbon, shouldering generations of oppression. We have no choice but to become diamonds. Thank you.
Well, I just wanted to thank all of you for coming out today. It's really, these events are about you and the gift of poetry. And believe me, without you, it wouldn't be nearly as much fun. So thank you for coming out. I just felt like with both Audrey and Juanita's readings that I had just stepped into a warm spa. You know, I just felt that kind of soothing. Both of you spoke to my inner soul, the places that we don't go often because we get so distracted by more superficial things. And so I think I'd like to invite anybody at any time to ask a question, but I'd like to lead off with the question of how do you delve down into a place that's sacred for you and resonates with all of us, you know, talking about finding kind of your tranquility in your own backyard, you know, that idea of Japanese forest bathing. It's not, it made total sense, but it's not something that I think of consciously. And Audrey, your memories of your dad and how that, it helps you go forward. Those are things to hold on to, gifts that he gave you, and it helps you take your next steps. So those kinds of very profound feelings, how do you get there and find a way to share them?
This is a very deep question because I didn't think about that. Wow. A lot of the stuff that I write about, of course, is history, my family, events, things that is personal for me. How do I get there? I really just think about things, and I said that would make a great poem, and so I write it. Or the poem writes itself, one of the two, I don't know. A lot of times I'm just writing outside the body, the poem is just taking off and doing its own thing, and I'm just there participating.
Yes.
That's basically how I can say that the writing just comes. And sometimes it comes in periods. It could be a word, one word, it could be a phrase, and then that just kind of takes off from there. It's no specific thing, that's not a magical thing, it just happens. I don't have a muse, I just sit and I just write. I think about things, and especially things that are really important to me. If I hear something on the news, it makes me want to, for my political poems, for sure, I will write from the place of, that makes me angry and I want to write about it, or that makes me sad and I want to write about it, and that is something I can resonate from my past and I can write about it. But that's how I get my inspiration. It's just writing from just a place of discovery of things that have a lot of meaning to me, and I just put it on paper. Sometimes it comes out in a form of a poem. Most of the time, I started writing poems for a long time ago, and it's changed over the years. Sometimes I can't think of anything to write, and I just go back through my old stuff and pull something out and say, you know what, I want to write about that. And so I reinvent the poems. Sometimes the poems don't go anywhere, they don't get published. And so I take them and take a fresh perspective and look at them again and say, these are poems that didn't go anywhere, they didn't make the books, but I'm gonna work on them until they do.
Because there's a good seed idea there.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
I think for me, I am open to the idea that I have a muse. The swamp poem, I didn't write that. I had my ears open and I literally heard that poem come in and I had my pen and paper and I wrote what I heard. So I can't even take credit for that poem. So I was definitely a vessel channeling something. And most of the other poems though, I have to say the common thread is that I was in a state, in some level, of being overcome by emotion. I think when Mom first got sick and we were dealing with COVID and we were dealing with the wildfires, we couldn't see the sun, So I literally couldn't breathe because I was holding my breath. Is Mom gonna come out of the hospital? Is tonight the night that the air quality takes over and consumes us in our sleep and we don't wake up? And there was a lot of social unrest and there was George Floyd and his last words, I can't breathe. I just couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
And that's when I found the Poetry for Wellness through, if y'all are familiar with Amherst Writers and Artists, they have a course, a workshop, it was a 4-week series they did specifically for caregivers. And it's like the universe brought that across my email inbox at the right time, and I took that. So between Amherst and the caregiving workshop and this, what I realized was that I was being stoic. I was very much like, I have to be strong for myself and for Mom, and nobody can see me crying. I wasn't gonna cry. But in these poetry workshops, what I learned was that when you read other people's pain and you can't help through association, put yourself in the poet's shoes, and where I wouldn't let myself cry for Mom's, not knowing if Mom was coming out of hospital or not. But I cried, I let myself cry for this other person because the empathy, I couldn't stop the empathy I had for the poet in pain on the page. And so what I took from that, I think, was the value of metaphor, how this makes me think of this. And so for example, my poem, Under the Gravity of Earth and Blankets, I have a line in there about we're not citrus under the squeeze, we are not garlic cloves or olives under the press. Because it's like, I was feeling pressure, I am from society right now, feeling pressure from all sides. And so I look to nature and what's an example of this in nature? And then I write from that, if that answers the question. Thank you.
And it's always fascinating to hear poets' tools and the places that, you may not know when you start the poem, you have a feeling, an idea, thought, wherever it generates from. You don't know necessarily where it's going to take you. It's quite a ride. Would anybody like to ask something from the audience?
I would, I'm curious. If you wouldn't mind sharing, I'm sorry, tell me your first name again, please. Juanita, yes. When you mentioned in your poem where you experienced alcohol for the first time, would you mind sharing what city this was in or state, and if your parents ever found out? I'm curious. My background is journalism, so I have to know who, what, when, where, why. Yeah.
I understand and I can relate. I've done journalism too, so I know. It was New Jersey, and I was 18, I believe. And I didn't know how to drink, okay? Let's put it that way. I was trying everything and experimenting and whatever. And I got really sick and really inebriated, and I walked out of the bar not even knowing where I was going, and I just literally walked up to a strange car and said, "Can you give me a ride home?" That the essence of what happened. I was in the back seat, I was just, didn't know what I was doing, and I had these gentlemen drop me off like a block and a half from home, and I walked back thinking that I would sober up by the time that I got to the front door. That was my experience, yes. I know it sounds stupid, but I was stupid back then.
Part B of Lorraine's question was, did your parents ever find out?
Okay, my stepmother at the time was home and she was awake, and like I said, my stepbrother opened the door and I said hi, and I walked in and I went to the bedroom. I said, I'm going to bed, and I just went in the bedroom and fell out and went to sleep. They were watching television, late night television, and they didn't ask me any questions. They just kind of just let me go, and I didn't say a whole lot because I didn't want to smell my breath. And so I just walked in, like, hey, how's it going, guys? We just went on to bed. There was nothing. But at this point, my father was not in the picture because he died when I was 9 years old. Yeah. So, but no, they had no reaction. They don't know what I was doing. One night I came in, I had a gallon of milk. I went to the store for a gallon of milk and wanted to come home very late. And I walked in with the milk, went in the refrigerator, went to bed. And late in the middle of the night, yes, I did that. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, I titled the poem "The Art of Drinking" because, like I said, I didn't know what I was doing. That was me not knowing what I was doing, and I was literally writing from a place of, I hope I get home safe, and I hope, because I really felt that at 18 years old, but I didn't write the poem until in my 60s. I'm 64 now, so I wrote that poem about 2 years ago.
Did you ever see The Stranger again? I gave you a ride home.
No. It was two guys from out of town, and I was in the back seat, and I just,
You were really blessed, because that could have turned out.
I know, it could have been very ugly. I could have wound up not even here today to talk about this. Yeah, that's true. That is very true. I was, let's put it this way, God had his eye on me, believe me, because I could have died that night. Anything could have happened.
Thanks for sharing.
Did you learn how to drink? And what did you learn?
Look what I said.
Never to mix mixed drinks and wine or anything like that. Never mix anything like that. I was just experimenting because I didn't know how. But that's why I call it the art of drinking, because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just mixing things for the taste. I drank all kinds of things that night, like I referenced in the poem, I had all kinds of things, and I didn't know what each one tasted like. I just wanted to taste it just to see what it tasted like. And I kept mixing and mixing. By the time I was done, I had mixed so many drinks that I was sick, literally. But that's why I call it the art of drinking. But now I don't drink anymore. I'm not a drunk. I don't drink anymore. That happened a long time ago. Like I said, when I was 18. I stopped drinking when I was 35. So, what does that tell you?
Anybody else?
That was a weird question. I didn't know.
But interesting.
Yeah, well,
Jacqueline.
Audrey had, when you were reading your poems, you had so many different symbolism, like the fish and the, different things like that. And can just share how you mentioned that some of the poems kind of just flowed through you, it just came to you, but how do you come up with some of your other works? And particularly when you think in terms of your father and the fishing and the one with your mom was just so beautiful.
Yes.
Oh, the meals.
The grace.
Yeah.
Again.
I like that. That was nice. I like how you finished it with grace. I love that. Because that was a double entendre too.
Exactly.
Oh, I love it.
That's what I was
Oh my
gonna
God, I
say,
love
and
it.
that's another one that came out from a writing prompt in taking
Yes.
these poetry for wellness classes.
Wow.
Is that there's I forget what the prompt was now, but again, like I said, I love the double meaning of words,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so with grace, I was thinking about you know, that's something that we still do. My husband and mom can attest. We sit down and every night have dinner together, and I'm like, okay, time for grace, and we say grace. And I sometimes you just can't explain it. It came over me in that moment. Oh, grace is what I want to make sure that I am, more so than, in addition to, I should say, in addition to the compassion and all the things that I try to bring to elder care and helping mom whenever she needs something, I just tried to uphold that dignity and the grace. And I thought, oh, let's figure out how to play with grace as a prayer before meals, and the grace that I'm attempting to show with the elder care.
That's beautiful, I love that.
So,
I love
And
how
your
you did
mom
that.
was so touched.
That double entendre was just
I noticed mom.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
she
Thank
was
y'all
so touched.
for saying something about that. And then similar to the fish poem too, like I said, like I was just like, I'm out here floundering. And just your mind, you know, the psyche does things, right? And it's the, oh, like that first time you caught a fish, that flounder. And I thought, oh, let me see how can I play with, I'm floundering. And there was that floundering on the pier when Daddy caught it with me when I was 4 years old, so.
And I just have to say too, the one about the package, you know, during COVID and just the tape, you know, that to me, I mean, we could all relate to that. We can all, of course, relate to the COVID, you know, just being isolated like that. But just the way you put that together with the tape and the package and, you know, that was powerful.
Thank you.
Great metaphor. I have so
Yeah.
many metaphors.
Could you talk more about the Poetry for Wellness?
Yes, absolutely. So, again, Palo Alto, the Institute for Poetic Medicine, it's run by a wonderful gentleman, John Fox, and he's been doing this for a very long time, decades. And it's an 8-week program, and you can either take it or you can, you know, as a student, or I chose to go on and get trained as a facilitator, so I hold these. If anyone's interested, let me know. Happy to hold these, and they're beautiful because they can be tailored to anything. The last one that I just did last month, I don't know if you all are familiar with the Poet Laureate, the inaugural Poet Laureate of El Cerrito, Mashane Wynn.
Yeah.
So she's also, her mother's 90 now, and so we both sort of are in caregiving roles for our mothers. And we're bonded because my mom is from Burma, and her parents, she's Burmese as well. And so anyway, Ma and I have started holding caregiving poetry for wellness circles. And the way it works is that we select poems on the theme, something to do with grief or gratitude or joy or resilience. And sometimes it's our poems, but often it's other more like last time we used Joy Harjar's poem, or if y'all know Denisha Lamaris, she's one of the Santa Cruz Poet Laureates. She has beautiful poetry of resilience, she calls it. And so we read these two poems together in the beginning of the session, and then we unpack it and we say, what did that bring up for you? And then we do prompts, and we do generative writing, and then at the end we share back. And it's just this very intimate, we limit it to 10 people, and it's just a very intimate space for sharing. And that vulnerability, you'd be surprised how much it really opens it up. So yeah, I love the work. It literally saved my life, and it's saving my life to now offer it back in community.
So it's the Institute for Poetic Medicine.
Yes.
Okay,
I want to talk some more about that too.
Yes,
because-
ma'am.
Yeah, because I did.
Use the mic, please.
I did several poems when my former husband died. And a lot of the poems got published in Redwood Writers anthology called Stolen Light.
Oh,
And,
wow.
you know,
That name,
yes, very
Yes.
powerful. And so that, a lot of the poems that got published that I wrote during that time, because I had just freshly been caregiving with my former husband. He had passed
Yes.
from brain cancer, and
Oh,
that
I'm
was
so
still
sorry.
very, very, it was 2015. And that was still very powerful and it affected me quite a bit. And so at that time, I was writing a lot of poetry that had to do with, you know, death and dying.
Yes.
Yeah, all of that.
Can I say one last thing
Sure.
about that? So that, what you're just speaking to, like, so that's how I came up with this the title for my chapbook that's about to come out, Attending Sorrow, because I feel like, I was working full-time. I recently stepped away from working full-time to spend more time with Mom. But the thing that I couldn't stand about corporate was how it was like, okay, you have X number of hours. If someone were to pass, you get 5 paid days of leave time. And the way I felt like grief was being weaponized, and I thought, grief is a spiral process. Like, it's not linear. Like, I'm not gonna be done grieving in 5 days. Right? And so the subtitle, Living with Grief, it was really important for me to bring that out in the poems that I'm gonna be sharing in this book, because it's about how do we stay upright and keep walking and keep navigating life? How do we live and go on with life in grief? Because grief it doesn't end, it changes. But so I just wanted to say, like, that's why this name came to me. It's attending sorrow, whether it's attending to your own sorrow or attending to the sorrow that is in the world right now, It's like, we gotta keep going. Yes, I'm grieving. Yes, there's much to be sorrowful about, but also I gotta keep going. So how do I stay standing tall?
And Audrey, I love your words of, we go from grief to gratitude for what there is to wholeness.
Yeah, and just to speak quickly to that, why I phrase it like that, because often people are like, what do you mean? How do you find gratitude in grief? Well, when I thought we had lost Mom, my father passed 20-some years ago now, and it was very sudden, as in the poem, if you recall. And so we didn't have any time to prepare anything. It's like he was like, oh, go home, I'll see you tomorrow. Well, he never came home, kind of thing. And so 20 years later, I can now speak about it without breaking down into a puddle of mess, because I've done so much of the depth work on it, the inner work. But the gift now is that when I thought Mom was dying, I was able to go back and I said, Daddy, help me figure out what were the lessons I learned from my grief cycle with you, that I can, if I get the call that Mom's passed, like, how am I gonna move forward, right? And I started just tapping into that inner resilience, and it was like, you know what you realized with your father's death was that it's his journey. I don't have any control, right? Like, it was his time to go, he went. And so likewise with Mom, when it's her time to go, she's gonna go. And it didn't help me. In some ways it doesn't help. Of course, you're always gonna be reduced to the sadness, the depths of sadness. But at the same time, it was like, okay, the inner child, the 8-year-old that was like, Mommy, 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 like, I was able to remember myself and remember adult daughter of this woman has a deep well of inner resource and resilience that unfortunately was honed when Daddy died. And I can reach back to that and pull from that and be strong in that and know that he's with our ancestors, and one day Mom will be with her ancestors, and one day so will I be with the ancestors. But like, it helped me move forward. Sorry, I feel like I overspoke on that, but.
Couple of more questions. We have time for a couple of more.
We have time for a few more questions.
Yeah, 2 more questions.
Does anyone have, Audrey Senior, I love your smile. Because this just all resonates, I think, with all of us. Does anyone else have anything?
I'm very interested in this work because recently I just visited my son's grave, who passed away in '09. And I feel so different now, because in between that time I lost my mother, and yet my father had passed away in '99, and it was a 10-year difference. So 10 years he passed, and then my son passed, and then my mom passed 10 years later. And yet I've changed so much in my grief process. And so, I realized, and I studied with Kubler-Ross way back when, before any of them died.
Wow.
And so, I did work with cancer patients dying, and so I'm really at this stage of my life interested in going back into that work. So I'd really be interested in, hearing more about your take on it, and I'm writing more poetry that way, and it's just, and now these days what we're dealing with, the grief that we're all dealing with in the world, and what we're faced with, and all the grief we're all experiencing as humans, what we're all looking at. So it's very interesting. So thank you for sharing.
Let's connect after. I'll give you my email.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful. incredible insights. Anybody else?
It's interesting because I'm kind of, it's a little bit of a joke, but I'm writing a poem. I've never written about my stepmother who, both of my parents divorced, and my dad met my stepmother, and I was 4 years old. And we were on the train in New York, and I asked my father, is she a friend? And he said, yes, and I crawled into her lap and fell asleep.
Oh.
And that's kind of how it all started. And he married brilliantly. He remarried. His second marriage was brilliant to my stepmother. My mother married poorly and stupidly. And so I had these two lives that I was shuttling back and forth. One in Harlem, in New York. My mother was completely broken. She was married to a crook. And possibly a pedophile, although I do not remember anything. And my father married this brilliant PhD, at the time in the 50s, for a woman to have a PhD, it was quite an accomplishment. And they were both very successful financially and living in the best part of town, blah, blah, blah. So, and then they split up. Ironically, I think it was during the Summer of Love. There was so much going on in the world, the Vietnam War, all of this stuff, the riots, and my stepmother had, marched with King, and she was friends with Pete Seeger, and she knew all these people, and was really on the side of all races. And she died in a car crash in '76, and then my father dropped dead of a heart attack in '77. So I lost both of them within the span of less than a year. They had already split. And so here I am, 47 years later, and I'm trying to write a poem about my stepmother about whom I've never written about. And it's just, first it turned into like a 3-page saga. And then, I'm trying to whittle it down. And so I'm thinking, how do you even begin to parse something like that? It's very difficult, I think. I mean, I think both of you have handled it so brilliantly to be able to do it so succinctly. And I feel like, where's my muse when I need her? It's just, my hat's off to you to be able to do that. That's not really a question. My question actually was much simpler than that. I just had to vent for a minute. But both of you have poems about simple things, like the tape. And you have a poem about hangers in a closet. And you both were able to create something incredibly imaginative just out of that particular object. And I'm just wondering, the pathway for each of you. What was the pathway for that? Did it start with coat hangers hanging in a closet, and you're thinking to yourself, where does that take me? Or was it something else? And for you, the tape.
I write abstractly a lot. And so to take an abstract object and write about it as if it had life. And in the way I wrote the one about the closet, the coat hangers, is that the hangers are a substitute for the person. They take on the personality of whoever is putting their coat on that hanger. And that's what I'm writing about, their lives. What are they hiding? What are they sharing with the world? Those coat hangers see everything, from the good and the bad. And so that's what I try to convey in my poem, that these coat hangers have lives. They can share the tales of the coats that they wear. They belong to those people that were not as nice. The people that wore the coats were maybe even criminals, were unkind. They had a bad day. They treat their families bad. Or they may be good people, but they have lots of tales that they can tell. And that's why I ended it the way I ended it, that the coat hangers are in the dark, but while we pretend in the light, we being the people that wear those coats. We're pretending that, that everything is fine, where the coat hangers have the real tales. That if they could only speak, what tales would they tell? That's actually one of the lines from my poem.
Thank you. That's really insightful.
Yeah.
Did you have a comment? That would need to be the last comment. We need to wrap up.
Yes.
Okay.
So the tape poem, I think I mentioned, it was out of a prompt or one of the workshops, and they just said, make much over something mundane. That was the prompt. And I wish I had something more insightful to say, but I really don't. I think I was sitting there looking like deer in headlights at my laptop, like, what am I gonna write? And I think right then Amazon came past my window and dropped a package. And I think that's what happened. I think it was just one of those like lucky moments.
Kismet.
Yes, kismet, that's it, yes, thank you.
That feeling of, oh, there goes my metaphor.
Yes.
Well,
I remember when I was writing the code, same thing.
thank you again for coming today. I feel like rather than wrapping up, this is a beginning. That connections are being made here about poetry as a tool for wellness on so many levels.
Yes.
And so I hope these conversations continue and the connections that have been made today. And just big, huge, warm thanks to Audrey T. Williams and Juanita Martin for being with us, sharing your words, your deep, deep feelings that, we're walking out with a gift.
Thank you for having us.